Well, good morning, Northshore, and welcome back to Northshore News. It's our first time together for the brand new year. I hope all of you have had a fabulous summer break and an opportunity to get outdoors, reconnect, perhaps with yourselves, your family members and friends, and nature, right? Just having an opportunity to experience this really amazing summer, amazing for many reasons, probably the weather and all of the opportunities to get outdoors. So really excited to be back and thrilled to be seeing staff as they've been returning and community members as well. So I want to share some important information this morning as we are only a week out from school starting. And I want to start with the fact that I know many of you are gearing up for back to school. Students are getting their back to school supplies back together. Hopefully we're practicing early bedtimes or earlier and earlier bedtimes. I remember those days with our own children. But as it gets a little darker earlier and light a little later, it's important to establish those sleep patterns and just patterns and habits as we get closer to the start of the year. This time of year can be really exciting and joyful as we prepare for this new beginning. I also want to acknowledge it can be a bit anxiety producing as well for both students and families. We have a number of students that haven't been to the school that they'll be attending because they're moving up from elementary perhaps to middle school or middle to high school, or Sorensen, our early learning programs, to elementary school. So there's a lot of excitement and also a little bit of anxiety. So take, a few minutes. Things don't have to happen quickly. Work on those routines and habits, and share opportunities to discuss how our students are feeling and how you as parents are feeling. It's important to support one another as we approach a new school year. With our amazing community, we also have partnerships, and our back to school event, in fact, is coming up this weekend. If there are back to school supplies that you feel your student would benefit from or need, there'll be information. Thanks, Alex. This is a link to our back to school fair and all the opportunities we have there. I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but I also want to mention, I don't think I can mention it enough actually, but I'll talk about it a little bit later as well. Want to make sure that, Alex, that you showed our back to school page link. I think you probably had it up there. Thanks. If you have questions about back to school topics and issues, this is your link, and we encourage you to check in on that regularly as we're making updates really daily as we have new guidance and information. I would also encourage you, you've received some messages from our communications department recently, but check the website, please, to check out our start times and end times and dismissal times. As you know, we've worked very hard to implement healthier start times, particularly for our adolescent and teenage learners, following the science and research around healthy start times, knowing our teenagers benefit from a little extra sleep. So if you haven't checked start times and dismissal times, I encourage you to check the website to do a double check there. Also encourage you to check Parent View to make sure that you have your passwords ready to go. I know many of you like to follow your students' progress, and this is an important portal from which to do that. It'd be great to make sure your contact information is correct as well in Parent View. One of the many things we're excited about that's new this year is in our transportation department. For those of you, students or families who have students riding the bus, we have a new feature this year. It's called My Stop, and it's an app that you actually download, and it will provide you a bus tracking tool. So particularly as we get to our more inclement weather, which I don't even want to think about snow right now, but as we get closer to snow and ice and rain and the types of inclement weather situations, the app will provide you an accurate time when the bus will be at your student's bus stop, both to pick up and also to deliver students back home. So that hopefully you'll be spending less time out in the driving rain or ice and snow. So we really see this as a key communication improvement to support you and the safety of your student. So we're really excited about that and want to thank our transportation department, Connie Knoll and her team, and Bruce Scoura and our support services for all the work they've done putting this together. We did pilot it with a small group of families last spring as we worked the bugs out. I am also going to tell you, I am sure there may be still bugs in it today. So if you have concerns or challenges using the app, we'll make sure there's a place for you to route those questions, because we want to make sure it's really a powerful tool to support you and your student. So I want to turn towards the actual school experience once we've gotten our students to school. And I want to share that I know it's a little bit of a time of uncertainty right now. And there is some anxiety about the Delta variant, the rising COVID numbers, and the increasing hospitalizations and decreasing hospital capacity and occupancy. So we've been speaking with staff around the state and also around the country. Many school districts, as you know, have already started school. And so we're really working hard. I was on a conference call recently with superintendents from around the country around what are best practices within class and school, transportation, recess, between classes, lunch times. So we have a lot of information that we're drawing from as we want to make sure we have the best possible safe plans for each of our students and staff and the families they go home to. So we've been processing mandates and guidance and recommendations and requirements as they shift and change with the full and deep understanding that everyone is doing their best right now. Our health departments, our elected officials, everyone has the same goal in mind, which is a healthy school year where we can keep schools fully open for all students. So to that end, I want to invite Deputy Superintendent Duggan Harman to join me this morning. Morning, Dugan.
Morning.
Dugan has been our COVID czar, is what we call him within the district, or maybe it was COVID king. I don't know, Dugan, but Deputy Superintendent Harman has been the person that's headed up our health and safety teams, our COVID response really as a district, and our protocols. So it's been fabulous to have Dugan at the helm and also overseeing all our athletic protocols. So this has been a whole nother job on top of a job. So Dugan, thanks for joining me this morning. I know you have a lot on your plate today. I really appreciate your patience, those of you who've tuned in this morning, and those of you who may watch later. We're going to give a brief overview of some of our safety protocols and expectations. You can find these actually on our website with our handbook. Thanks, Alex. But we really want to make sure we have a safe school environment and a learning and working environment also for all staff and for those volunteers and parents who need to be in the schools for one reason or another. So Dugan, let's start with these protocols. Thank you again, Alex, for posting the online link. What about mask requirements? Let's just start right there on bus and at school.
Sure. Let me start by saying that the protocols that are online, those are dynamic documents, and they are updated sometimes a couple of times a day as we get more clarification or updated guidance from the state. So make sure that you go back to that frequently, and when we update them, we make sure and highlight if there has been an update in a specific area. So a lot of what I say this morning is going to go back kind of just to what our prime directive has been, we've been working with staff on, and that is to maximize social distancing where possible and to minimize congregation of students and staff. So specifically, Dr. Reid, you asked about buses and at school. Masks always need to be worn on buses. 100% of the time. Once we get in the school building, when in the school building, the same thing applies for elementary and secondary. Masks 100% of the time. When we go out to recess, we're going to ask our students to wear masks when they're playing, particularly around play structures, when they're congregating. But we all know that you need a break to take that mask off. So we are providing a place for students to go, be completely social distance, take that break, take their mask off for a few minutes. In secondary, where we don't have recesses, the opportunity for that break is an outside passing time. We know, though, that we still have to make sure that students are socially distant. So we're going to be working with students to make sure that they have a place between classes to take their mask off for a couple of minutes, as long as they keep themselves and everyone else safe.
That seems reasonable. I think what we're trying to do is find the middle ground wherever possible and also keep our students safe. To that end, I know that each individual school has a really different layout, different structure, different type of building and campus. But I also want to reassure families, we've received a lot of questions about lunch. And I know that our school staffs are working on ways to create either more lunch periods, so fewer students are at lunch at the same time, create outdoor eating areas for those students who might choose to eat outdoors. So we're really working on creative solutions building by building. So I think families should expect to hear more details around those school-specific plans from their school principals. And I know you're staying connected to the school staff, Dugan, to make sure that those plans meet really our health and safety overarching guidelines.
Definitely.
So we've received questions actually also about staff vaccinations. And this is all staff. This is you and me and every school staff member. Last week, I think as folks know, Governor Inslee issued a mandate that by October 18th, all school district employees in the state really are required to be vaccinated or lose their employment. So they also had the option to request a religious or medical exemption by the 18th. Our Human Resources Department and other departments are providing information and reporting tools to support this work. So I want to assure our community we're complying with that order and intend to have those policies and forms and options up and running here very shortly. So we're also holding a vaccination clinic at the Back to School Fair, which I mentioned earlier. And that Back to School Fair is the day after tomorrow. It's on Saturday and it's at Popkini. So it'll be outdoors. For any staff or community member age 12 and over can receive a vaccine at Popkini Stadium. The interest form can be found on the Back to School Fair page. Thanks, Alex. You're always a step ahead of me. I appreciate that. So Dugan, what is one of the most important things that families can do to help slow the spread of the Delta variant, which honestly helps us stay open?
Well, right after reinforcing masking, the most important thing a family can do is if a student has any symptoms, keep them home. Don't assume that it's a seasonal cold or an allergy. We would rather err on the side of the student staying home if they're not feeling 100% than them coming to school and having the potential of spreading the virus throughout the class.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And that would go the same for staff and adults. If you're not feeling healthy, really it's important to stay home. So from the bus ride to arrival in the classroom, what will the student experience be?
So once again, we want to minimize congregation and maximize social distancing. So when the student gets off the bus, schools are going to be working to get kids into the classroom and keeping them socially distanced. One change that you'll notice from last year is we're not lining kids up before they go into the classroom to take temperature checks. Temperature checks were found to not be a very robust preventative or detective measure. And in fact, they were counterproductive because what they did is they congregated students together. So we will not be doing the temperature checks. Students will get off the bus and essentially go right into the classroom wherever possible.
That makes a lot of sense. What about hand washing, physical distancing, and cleaning the schools? What can we expect in those areas?
So On the hand washing side, we will continue to have hand washing stations set up. We will have signage to promote physical distancing. We're going to try and keep kids minimum of 3 feet apart, 6 feet apart in some areas, especially when eating. As always, masks except when eating or drinking. We will be continuing to clean all of our rooms every night, and we have our HVAC systems set so that we have plenty of ventilation and a minimum of 50% of outside air coming in, which is following CDC guidelines.
You know, I think that the minimum of 50% outside air for our HVAC system following CDC guidelines just didn't work great for us this summer when the outside air was at 100+ degrees.
That did present some unique challenges, yes.
Right. Well, and I'm a little concerned if we have a winter that plunges to, you know, I don't know, teen type temperatures, we may need to remember to bring mittens and, our down wear for indoors even. But it's important for us to keep that air moving. That's really priority one. So what about attestations, the daily attestations? Are those something families are going to need to continue to do, or what are we doing with that process?
We are not doing the attestation the way it was done last year. We are instead really focusing on communicating out both at the district level, which we're doing now, and at the school level with principal and teacher communication home, that if your student does not feel well, if they are exhibiting any of the symptoms, or if they have been around anyone who has been diagnosed with COVID, to stay home, and we will deliver lessons. There will be lessons assigned. There's not going to be learning loss, but we just want to make sure that we don't have anyone who might be potentially positive coming into the classroom.
Well, that makes sense. What about a family? What should they do if their student receives a positive COVID test result?
So we are still working with the state and finalizing those protocols. I think that will be out in the next couple of days. If your student does receive a positive test, though, obviously they're going to be out for a period of time, and our teachers are going to be working utilizing Schoology, the learning management system that we implemented last year, so that student has access to their lessons as long as they're feeling well enough to work. In many cases, if a kid's sick and has symptoms, then we're going to treat that just like we would in the past if a student had the flu or was out sick. But Schoology lessons will be available. Teachers will be available to answer questions and work with the student and families as needed.
Great. We've also received questions, and I touched on this earlier, about safety protocols for lunch, because that is the time students will have their masks off. Can you share why that has to be an individual school decision that principals are going to be sharing? And I know I kind of touched on it, but I think perhaps there may be some other details.
I think that you did a pretty good job. Each school's layout is different. Many, actually, a majority of our elementary schools don't have cafeterias. And some schools will have the ability to eat outside. Some of that will be weather dependent. The weather is different in different parts of our district at any given time. So the schools are given the latitude to work with the food services staff to make sure what is the best way to deliver lunch, while, once again, going back to that prime directive, maximizing social distancing and minimizing congregation.
I think that's really critical. Any information that we're still waiting on in terms of COVID protocols that you might want to share?
There's a few things that haven't been finalized out there. Athletics, we're finalizing now. There's a little bit of more work to do there. Field trip protocols, and in particular extracurricular, for example, dances. What are the protocols for that?
Right.
So we wanted to make sure that we were ready for the first day of school, and now we're shifting our focus to kind of those extracurricular items.
Another important level of protection that we used last year when we think about all those layered protection features is that we did batch testing last year. I know we're going to be implementing that again this year, and we haven't provided detailed information yet, but what can you share with us about that? Because I know you're working directly with folks in the batch testing world to set up our program.
I am. In fact, I had a 7:30 meeting this morning, and we're getting close. So we're working with the Health Commons Project and a company called CIC Health, which has a contract with Washington State Department of Health, and we are working so that CIC Health comes in and provides batch testing in all of our classrooms. There's a lot of details still to be worked out. I expect this, I can say this won't be ready for the first day of school, but should be ready shortly thereafter. And they will be, in the past where we took, I'll say we used our own staff, our teachers, our principals, our assistant principals, our office staff to do this. Department of Health is going to fund this company, CIC Health, to come in and do all of that. So it'll let our staff focus on what our staff needs to focus on. It will minimize interruptions to learning, and it will hopefully be much more efficient in getting results to the labs and then back. These are using labs in the area. I think I can say that there is a lab out of Seattle. There is Northwest Labs in Bellingham, which we have worked very well with in the past, and University of Washington Medical Center too. Sort of the three labs that this company will be working with. So much more to come on that in the following days. I did want to say a couple things. One, we know that testing helps keep the spread of COVID down.
Right.
Because it allows early identification. The more students and staff that we can get tested, the better protection we have. And then finally, in those cases where we have symptomatic staff or students on site, a student in the middle of the day starts having symptoms, we already have rapid antigen test capability, which our school staff will be able to administer and get kids separated and find out, is it allergies or is it potentially COVID? So,
and it's important to note that that's starting the first day of school. We have the rapid antigen for symptomatic students or staff to immediately test, and that's available right from day one.
Correct.
Whereas our batch testing likely will start within the first week or two of school, probably the second week perhaps is what we're shooting for. But both of these features, and I think you really, I want to underscore what you said, which is our goal is to keep school open 5 days a week for all students. And testing is a key component. In fact, the CDC recommends this type of batch screening testing when the community transmission rate reaches certain levels, and we're well over those levels right now. So this is really also in accordance with CDC recommendations so that we can maintain safe and healthy schools and schools that are open and in person. And so we really encourage as many students and obviously staff to participate as well. So appreciate all your efforts on that, and there will be more information coming, as well as how to sign your student up for the screening and batch testing. So thank you so much, Dugan. Appreciate your input this morning. And I know you've been really busy, and just want to give you a big thank you. Also want to recognize that you do coordinate with a COVID supervisor at each school. So it's not just a centralized our structure is Deputy Superintendent Harman is overseeing all things in our COVID response. And then there is a COVID supervisor within each school and department that coordinates, as well as with our nursing supervisor, Cindy Matto, and all of our nurses across the system. So it's a very systemic approach, and we believe that's critical to our success in staying open. So I want to remind everyone that we've taken our COVID dashboard off pause. Over the summer, it was paused, but we are now tracking positive COVID cases in our schools and buildings. And we know parents have asked for this so that we can stay on top of what's happening in our schools. Thanks, Alex, for bringing that up. At the bottom of the page, be sure to keep track. We follow each school and the number of cases, as well as our community transmission rate. So I want to make sure you have that information, and the link again is on the screen to that. That will be updated regularly, and appreciate the work of Angie Hancock and our team that keeps that data both from the health departments as well as locally in terms of our own school buildings and district. In related news, I want to share that the deadline for enrollment for our virtual program was this past Monday at 5 o'clock. We did open enrollment for that program last June, several months ago, and had multiple information sessions last June. There is a curriculum night information meeting, or there has been, I believe, this week for those families who did sign up, just as every school has an open house type event or curriculum event. So we have a wait list if you're interested. And currently we have over 1,300 students who've made a choice to start in the virtual program. And we want to make sure that those students, there are some students who have signed up for the full year, and other students that have signed up until they can be vaccinated. In other words, their families have signed them up to start virtually, and once they're able to receive the vaccine, they'll be returning to their classrooms. And we've put systems into place to help that be as seamless as possible. We also want to encourage students to stay connected to their home schools, particularly if they're planning to return later this fall, as vaccines are available to our younger students, as we hope they become available. Finally, I want to remind folks again that our back to school fair this Friday is really a fabulous event. It'll be hosted at Pop Keeney from 10 o'clock in the morning till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. There's also a vaccine clinic there for all students and family members and staff aged 12 and older. You just need to go to the link Alex has put on there to indicate an interest. And again, a big shout out and thank you to Lauren Lewis, who's coordinated that from the district, and Natalie Campbell behind the scenes, as well as our Shoreline Fire Department and rescue partners. Without fabulous community partners, this work is really more difficult. So big thanks to Lauren and our community partners in this work. Many of the departments that your student or you might connect with over the course of the year will have representatives at the back to school fair. Student services, transportation, food services, all will have staff to answer questions about busing, transportation, food, rights and responsibilities, and other student services topics. It's just a fabulous event, and our planning partner has been our Northshore Schools Foundation under the able leadership of Executive Director Carmen Dalziel, and our Northshore Schools Foundation continues to support students, staff, and families both during the pandemic, pre, and as we come out of the pandemic. So just many thanks to our Northshore Schools Foundation partners as well. I know this has been a lot of information this morning, and some of it will continue to evolve and change. Just know that we are working hard. Our 3,000 staff here in Northshore, every single staff member in their unique role is working day and night right now to support a smooth opening and a welcome for our close to 24,000 students. We are one Northshore family, and in our house, we're going to keep working together to meet any challenge that comes in front of us this year. It will not be a challenge-free year for sure. However, together, all things are possible. So I encourage you to remember three things as we think about approaching the start of the year. Remember that kindness is so important, respect for one another, and doing everything we can to maintain a safe and healthy environment so we can beat this COVID virus and put it behind us once and for all. So until next week, I wish you a safe and healthy rest of this week and weekend, and look forward to welcoming students and families and staff back to our schools in the coming week. So thank you for joining us this morning, and we'll see you soon.